In a quiet fishing village by the edge of the sea lived an old fisherman named Raman and his young son Arun. Their small wooden boat slept on the sand each night and floated again with the morning tide. Arun was strong and eager, but restless. He hated waiting for the water to rise and wanted to sail early to prove himself faster and better than the other fishermen. Every morning his father tied the rope around the boat and said, "The sea has its own clock, son. We must learn to read it." But Arun's hands always reached for the rope too soon. One night, the moonlight touched the shore and the tide was far away. Arun whispered to himself, "Today I'll not wait." He grabbed the thick rope and began to pull with all his strength. The sand resisted, the boat refused to move, but he kept dragging until his palms burned. Raman stepped from the hut and called, "Arun, what are you doing?" "Father," he panted, "by the time the tide comes, others are already gone. We lose the best fish. I'll pull the boat out myself." Raman's eyes were calm as still water. "The sea does not reward those who shout at it," he said. "It listens only to silence." But Arun didn't listen. He pulled again. The rope stretched, screamed, and snapped. He fell backward into the sand. The boat didn't move an inch. The broken rope lay beside him like a sleeping snake. Raman looked at it quietly. "When a rope breaks, it is not because it was weak," he said, "but because it was forced before its time." Ashamed, Arun lowered his eyes. "I only wanted to prove myself," he murmured. "Proving yourself to the sea," said his father, "is like arguing with the wind. It always wins." Arun said nothing. He sat beside the torn rope, angry and tired. He tried to tie the ends together, but the fibers were frayed and slippery. The harder he pulled, the weaker the knot became. At last, he gave up, staring at the horizon until the sky began to turn orange. Slowly, the tide crept back, covering the sand, lifting the boat without effort. His father called softly, "Do you see how the sea comes on its own?" Arun nodded. The same boat that had refused to move earlier now glided easily, the water cradling it like a mother lifting her child. He helped his father push it into the tide. The air smelled of salt and dawn. As they rowed out, Raman said, "The sea has moods. Sometimes it's generous, sometimes angry. Waiting teaches you which is which. When you rush, you only hear the noise." Arun stared at the water shimmering with light. He realized it wasn't the rope that had broken, it was his patience. By the time they returned, their nets were full, while many others had caught little. Arun smiled quietly. For once, he didn't feel proud. He felt peaceful. The next day, the village buzzed with excitement. Clouds gathered on the horizon, but some young fishermen said, "Let's go before the rain." Arun looked at the sea. The wind had changed. The air smelled heavy. He stayed by the hut. His father, sitting by the fire, asked, "Not going?" "The sea sounds different today," Arun said. That night, the storm arrived. The waves roared and lightning split the sky. By morning, pieces of broken boats washed ashore. The fishermen who had rushed out returned shaken and empty-handed. Arun watched silently. Raman placed a hand on his shoulder but said nothing. Both knew what patience had saved. Years passed. Arun grew into a steady man known for listening to the tides. When people were unsure, they looked at him before sailing. He never ordered. He simply observed. One evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Raman said, "Do you still keep the rope that broke?" Arun smiled. "I do." "Good," said Raman. "When pride tells you to pull too soon, touch that rope. It will remind you that strength means nothing without timing." The old man passed away the following season, and Arun kept his promise. Whenever the sea darkened, he took the mended rope from its hook and whispered, "We wait." The rope never broke again. Friends, how often do we try to pull life before it's ready? We push, we rush, we demand results because we think effort alone controls everything. But life, like the sea, has its own tide. No matter how hard you pull, it won't rise sooner. Sometimes what feels like delay is protection. What feels like silence is timing. Patience isn't weakness, it's trust. The sea knows when to return, and life does too. So if your rope feels heavy, if nothing seems to move, don't fight the tide, sit quietly, listen. The moment will come when the current itself lifts you forward. Be patient, not proud. Your time will arrive exactly when it's meant to.